All right, I'm going to go ahead and call this Committee on Appointments to order. I think that was 1 minute by my count. So we're going to go ahead and call this meeting to order at 12:02. For anyone watching, we have just come out of closed session, and that's why this meeting was delayed. So our apologies for that. And this is the last meeting that we have for today, as this was a special meeting. So just want to put that out there for the record. And we only have one agenda item, and this is really kind of picking up of what we have talked about over the last couple of months about just prepping ourselves for year-end appointments, knowing that there is, I think, Daniel, you sharing that statistic, we have 100 or over 100 boards, and we had, I'm sorry, 40 boards, and the other way around, thank you. You're like, you're wrong.
Wait a minute.
You can always feel free to correct me. That we have 40 boards, and there was over 100 individuals who were going to be reappointed.
Forgive me.
Hi, Commissioner Moody. No, we were just,
I thought I had my,
you're fine.
wear your badge in your.
Yeah.
Put it in my pocket, forgot it.
Oh, okay. Well, we are just starting. We were just saying, really just for today is to continue this discussion of year-end appointments. There is a handout that Daniel has provided, but I think you providing that insight about the fact that we have 40 boards and there was 100 individuals who would need to be reappointed. And then we talked about prioritizing those that were completely term limited or who no longer wanted to do that, right? Those were two kind of caveats. And then the next would be those who were eligible for reappointments and who we believed had been, productive members of the bodies and would, in the best case scenario, probably be reappointed, right? So can you provide a little context? So I'm looking at this. So colleagues, we have this document in front of us that has some demographic information, the different committees. So I'll let you say what this is, sorry.
Sure. I'll give a little background for
Yes,
this
thank you.
document itself. What this is the city commission appointments, and these are the appointments that are currently filled, and they are expiring at the end of this year. Okay. So for all of the boards that the city commission as a whole appoints, these are the folks that are going to be either need to be reappointed or need to be notified that their replacement will be serving at the beginning of 2022.
And then Daniel, are all of these, and I know some of this comes to the conversation with the liaisons, and I see Ms. Turkelson was here, but I'm looking at like Board of Zoning Appeals, just because I know she's a liaison for that one. Do we believe that all of these individuals, these ones they're eligible,
Correct.
but have we confirmed if they're interested?
So what I have for you as well is hard copies of all of the applications for the boards that the city commission appoints. And if current members have submitted a PIF for reappointment consideration, I've placed that on the top of the stack.
Okay,
So if you do not see the name of an individual at this point, that means they have not reapplied.
okay. So, and we're going to say that we assume that they have, we are going to assume that in the liaison committees that they have talked about sort of term limits and things like that. But
Correct.
we don't know that for sure.
Correct.
Okay.
The applicant or the board members have been contacted, if not only by their liaison, by me as well.
Got it.
So I have
Okay.
reached out
All right,
from my office
okay. That's great, thank you.
to all expiring appointments. So
Okay.
I'm not sure if we want to go board by board. I have the packets.
Okay,
Or if this is something we want to review and then at our standing meeting, go over those so you'd have a chance to review all of the applicants then.
well,
Up until then, apologies.
Sure. I'm looking at, one, I'm just seeing that some of these individuals are staffed roles, right? So Ms. Adkins, Mr. Jernberg,
Sutter.
Yep.
Ms. Sutter, Mr. Grenier, those are all city staff. And I don't know if by the bylaws, it probably is requiring us to have a city staffer
Correct.
sit on that
That
body.
would be the board position would be staff member in Ms. Sutter's case, the area of sustainability.
Okay.
Or things like that. So those are just
Yeah.
more recognitions of appointment rather than selections.
I'm sorry, go ahead. do they need to go through the same process? Like I'm looking at Mr. Dode, who's at, Kent County CFO. So do they then follow that same process and do they have to resubmit something? Or is it by virtue of their employment, they are eligible for that appointment?
For City of Grand Rapids employees, it's by virtue of employment.
Okay.
With the county position, I'm not exactly sure what past practice has been with, Mr. Dode was appointed to that position when he was a city employee.
Okay.
So, I'm not sure. I can look into that position in particular, but
I would say if the committee, if it pleasures the committee, if I could talk to Ms. Claren as our new CFO, if he was appointed, I didn't know that. I didn't know if he was appointed, in his role as CFO at Kent County.
Yeah.
I can follow up with her following this meeting, and we can pull out what are those appointments, because if he was appointed as CFO, my understanding then we'd want our own representation unless our own representation exists on the board.
Right.
And this is one of those bodies,
I
this
support
probably
that.
meets like quarterly,
Right.
I'm guessing?
Right.
Twice a year, maybe?
right, this is a regional board with, Mr. Lozicki at Rhodes McKee being
Yep.
the liaison, so
Okay.
it's not internal, but I do know that I believe Miss Foster of HR serves on the board as well.
Okay.
Okay.
So is that okay, colleagues, to follow up with Ms.
I think so,
Claren, just for
yeah.
some of the background? As, as the deputy prior and working with Mr. Dode, like I'm guessing that she will also have some information.
Right.
Okay. So then I think, so knowing this, we could essentially at our next standing meeting, we could at least put the city colleagues on to be reappointed.
Yep.
Because they're all and I don't know everybody's name on here, but those are the ones that stood out to me, as city employees.
So, just for clarification, you'd like those appointments to come before the large end-of-year appointment?
I'm just thinking if it's by virtue of we just need to get it done, do we just add some of these to our next standing agenda, so then we kind of clean the list? But
Okay.
if I'm also open if you're like, Commissioner, that is going to cause some problems, we could do it in one fell swoop, but,
The past practice has been the one large agenda item with
Okay.
all of the board and commission
Okay.
appointments, just to make it easier for
Okay.
record keeping and,
okay, then let's continue to do
So,
that,
okay.
but know that we can at least take out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, potentially 6 off of here.
correct.
And because Mr. Colson is here, thank you for coming.
It's nice to have one audience member.
Yeah. Could we prioritize Board of Zoning Appeals then? Because Ms. Turkelson does have 1, 2, 3 people who are eligible to be reappointed.
All of whom have reapplied.
They have reapplied. Okay. So then we could take those 3 off. And any comments, Ms. Turkelson, about? Could you come to the microphone? I'm sorry. This is being televised, so the world is watching.
Good morning, Commission.
Good morning.
Right.
Yes, I'm, I think Board of Zoning Appeals and Planning Commission are both critical. I have
Yes.
3 reappointments, or 3 individuals of each board that are eligible for reappointment. Planning Commission, we know that Mr. Greenwald is not able to continue serving, so there's a gap there. So if there's any way to prioritize, I would be very grateful.
So we approved Christine Birch at our last meeting,
Yep.
and that was to replace Mr. Greenwald, or that was to replace
That was-
Mr. Brame?
Mr. Brain.
Dr. Brame.
So
Okay.
then I know
Dr.
that
Brame.
there was another individual that the mayor was looking at, that we talked about at the last meeting, and I don't know, I'd have to go back to the name. I have it in my notes. I don't have it in these notes.
Mr. Christopher Germain,
Yes. Does he have a fully vetted PIF?
he does.
Okay.
Yes.
So can we follow up with the mayor, and then we can see if we can get that added on? When are the agenda items due? I always forget.
So for.
Tomorrow.
Yes, for the December 7th meeting, they're due tomorrow.
Yeah, Chardonnay sent
Okay.
it out today.
And can you repeat his name?
Christopher Germain,
Okay.
Germain.
Okay.
I have hard copies of the PIFs as well.
Okay. And has Mr. Colson seen that PIF
I believe it has been sent,
Okay,
yes.
Yes.
wonderful. All right.
Yes.
And supportive.
Yes, I have no objection. It's just, it's helpful because of the onboarding associated with
Right.
these two boards specifically, that the sooner we get the appointments,
more
the sooner
intense.
we logistically can begin to plan.
So that's not necessarily a year end, but let's prioritize that. Actually, I know the mayor was going to another meeting, but I can give her a call today and we can just follow up.
Yeah.
Sure,
And
I'd
just
be
make
happy to
sure,
move forward with
especially
that
knowing that the
appointment.
action item is going to be due tomorrow. I'd rather get that one on this first meeting in December.
Sure.
Anything else, Mr. Golson?
No, I just really appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
That's why I come, so you can see my face. And make sure.
That's right.
You know, it does count. No, it's kidding. I know we are working to be more safe, but thank you. I agree. I mean, all of our boards and commissions, our appointment is just the quasi judicial nature of BZA, and obviously planning, having the kind of agendas that they have. We know we want to always keep those ones at the top of this list, so thank you. All right. And then the rest of these, Daniel, you said you have reached out to them, and then you do have active PIFs for each one of these, or not necessarily for each person on this list?
Not for necessarily each person on the list.
Okay.
If through personal knowledge or through any recommendation of your colleagues, you know that these folks are still interested, I'm happy to reach out and expedite the vetting process to ensure that we don't have to
Yep.
go through the paperwork of posting the vacancy and then reapplying and
Right.
things like that.
Right.
So
Okay.
if in these hard packets you don't see someone's PIF, then let me know and I'd be happy to reach out again.
Okay.
But anyone who has reapplied will be in your hard
Yep.
copy.
Okay. So I think one on here, and I don't know how often the Water System Advisory Council meets. I'm guessing maybe quarterly.
Right.
But they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 outside of the 3 city officials that would serve. So I just want to prioritize ones where they're, I don't ever want to
Right.
impede a meeting from happening.
Yeah.
So could we look for, do you have them by individual, or do you have them by the body that they serve on?
I have them by the body.
Okay. Could we look at the Grand Rapids Water System Advisory Council then?
I will note a few members on that list are appointments from, I believe, either customer communities or.
Oh.
So this is
The outside of the city.
So
ones
much
are-
like Vital Streets, where it's a different organization. Okay. And then, Daniel, this is a question that I have for you. You said these are the commission appointments. Is there another list for any mayoral appointments that are terming?
correct. The mayor has been given this
That list.
same
Okay.
information as well for
Got it.
her appointments.
For her appointments, okay. Thank you. Appreciate that. Okay, so I'm looking at this first one, which is Doug LaFave. I'm hopefully saying that correctly, as last names are important, as we know.
Yes.
And so it looks like, so he has submitted a PIF. He lives outside of the city, which is, I think certainly allowed for these types of advisory boards that have more of a regional focus. And,
Looks like that's the only one
yep,
that's submitted. Then there's Kim and Fran Dalton, who are not currently on the board.
So Commissioner, can I get an understanding? Are we-
Absolutely.
When we're looking at advisory boards, is it noted that advisory boards can be individuals who do not live in Grand Rapids, from what I'm reading
for
here?
some of them, depending on the bylaws. So this would be one that is, because again, our water system would be supplying to, I can't remember how many communities, is it like, but having different, so yes, we are able to have different representation on this board, much more because it's advisory and also because there's a regional aspect to it versus some of us, which are, like the Board of Zoning Appeals is really to any sort of disagreements with zoning laws as it relates to properties in the city of Grand Rapids.
So explain it to me one more time.
Sure. So the eligibility is all dependent on how the bylaws are written. And my assumption, I don't have these bylaws in front of me, but because it's our water system and not just for the city of Grand Rapids, we do, I mean, I'm looking at folks to say, we provide those water services not just for the city, so then we would have that, we would want to have other customer groups eligible to be part of this body. Is that fair?
Right.
Other colleagues? Okay.
Yes, yeah.
I believe it's similar to the Utility Advisory Board.
Okay.
Where other city managers from around neighboring communities serve as either a voting member or just kind of counsel.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. Is that helpful, Commissioner? Yeah. Okay. So as Commissioner Repart said, the two PIFs that we have are coming from two individuals that are not currently on this board, but who are, one is a Ward 3 resident and one is a Ward 1 resident.
Right.
And
And, you know,
I'm just seeing if they noted if they were, sometimes people have a reference of somebody else and they might
I
say.
believe Francis Dalton is to replace Ann Brower.
Amy
Or
Brower,
Amy
mhm.
Brower, I apologize.
Yeah.
yeah, because she's from GPNA and Amy was RPNA. Yeah, so that makes sense.
Okay.
So we could swap out Amy for Fran in that regard, and then the other one looks like she works for GRPS. So I don't know if sometimes GRPS has a designee to these.
I can't tell. I mean, Paul Hahn is on here. He's no longer at Healthy Homes. I don't know if that was him individually or by virtue of being with Healthy Homes.
My guess is the latter, but I don't know for sure.
So I would be supportive of, if it looks like Amy is asking Fran to take on this role, just, I know there's sometimes with the different neighborhood associations wanting to,
Right.
to sort of rotate. And then with Kimberly Barron,
So that's what we don't know is
we don't
there
know.
a GRPS?
Is there a GRPS seat?
Right. And who is on, similarly, is she replacing
Right.
another GRPS liaison?
So if I'm making an assumption that perhaps Paul might be a GRPS or through community,
Yeah, you could either one.
but I think that I would feel comfortable. It looks like Doug and Fran were two who could move into that year-end appointment list that we talked about.
Okay.
Any other comments about, I think if we could figure out just the GRPS piece, Daniel, and then, or you're going to give us some real-time information?
Just a cursory overview. I don't see any GRPS email
Okay.
addresses.
Okay.
Could potentially be, I'll do some further digging and see if they've listed GRPS as an employer, but a different email. But just a cursory overview does not show a specific GRPS seat.
Okay. So it looks like then, again, it's 9, but 3 are city employees who would be, by virtue of the bylaws, would be on there. But we would still need answers regarding Paul and George Haga. Those are the 2. And then perhaps Kimberly Barron would be interested. And then these 3 that you've given us, these are fully vetted, or you're waiting for us to say?
Fully vetted.
These are fully vetted, okay. So then we could,
George Haga was the former supervisor of Ada Township,
okay,
and so he probably was just
on there from another
correct.
regional perspective.
But he's retired, you said?
I think, yeah, they have a new supervisor there. He was like the supervisor / water or utility administrator.
Okay.
For Ada, okay. Great. Okay. So I would feel comfortable with that once we just would need to go back and confirm Paul Hahn and George Haga.
Well, but also Sarah Simmons.
Oh, I'm sorry, yes, thank you.
And Taylor Devoda.
Taylor is not reapplying,
Okay.
and it shows Miss Simmons is from the county.
She's from the county.
Okay. So would she be required to do a PIF as well, or she would fall?
I'd have to confirm, but
Okay.
I don't believe so.
Okay. So then, at the very least, we would have one opening with Miss Devoda not applying if Miss Barron wanted
Wanted
to
to step in.
be moved forward. Okay. And as long as we know that Miss Devoda wasn't representing one sort of particular interest area, I shouldn't say interest area, identity with either an organization or a neighborhood, I think that would be the only thing we'd want to confirm.
Yeah.
Any other comments, colleagues, about this one? I feel like we have enough to at least give Daniel some direction and then move forward with this one.
I think so.
Daniel, what's the term for that, for this board? Is that 1 year, 2 year?
It's a 3-year term.
So then we get a little time. It's all hitting all at once, right? At least it's happening not next year in our election year. I think the other one, and Commissioner Repper, I wanted to just bring this up. I know you do need to exit at 12:30, is our Housing Appeals Board. I wanted to highlight this one because, as you know, I think over the last few years, this has been a board that has, had some resignations or some people who didn't meet the bylaws about attendance and then were asked to, because of the bylaws, were asked to be removed from the board. And so I know one of these is at least one of my appointments. I also know that person is also serving on participatory budgeting. So
Right.
I'm not sure if they are going to continue. That's Mr. Doug Booth.
Yeah.
I don't know if they're going to continue in that role, but I can certainly follow up if we haven't heard from him via your outreach and the other outreach.
Mr. Booth has submitted a reapplication.
Oh, he has, okay.
Yes.
I'm sorry, you didn't, I know you said I have all the packets for that. So could we look at that one
Of course.
briefly and then look to close the meeting after that? I should say end it, not close it. Still be open. Use the right language.
So how many
Just
openings
if-
are on the Housing Appeals Board at this point?
So there are 2 vacancies and then the 4 expiring appointments.
So this is another one that we need to make sure we nail it, otherwise they'll lose quorum.
Right. And this is one that's been sort of consistent in that. I think, I think they usually have to do like an off-site visit sometimes from Ms. Bohach. So sometimes depending on what's in front of them, because these are only happening if there's an active appeal, that's sort of the body of their work. But I know then the meetings can be a little bit longer, and so sometimes it's just making sure the appointees understand it could be a longer meeting some days, so. Okay, so Daniel, on this one, so Mr. Doug Booth has resubmitted,
Correct.
so he's one of my appointees, so if he wants to do it, I'll happily
Great.
ask my colleagues to consider him again.
Yeah.
He's been an active volunteer for the city. The next is Bethany Reed. Also, it looks like a second warder. And has resubmitted.
So those are it doesn't look like anybody else has resubmitted.
Correct.
So I would be supportive of moving forward with these 2 at least, so then
Yeah.
we'd only have 2 expiring. And then here are these are the rest that have submitted.
Correct.
Okay.
So Sarah Hampton is a 3rd ward.
Okay. This individual
And is outside of the city.
is outside of the city, and I think on the housing appeals, is residency a requirement?
Yes.
I haven't memorized them all, so then we should remove this Dion Hardiman, because they don't meet the residency requirements for this board. a Mr. Gary Mulder,
Ward 1.
okay. Jessica Notenbaum, this is another third warder. Nathaniel Phillips is another second warder. He also, I'm like, I know this name.
That's one I recognize.
He's served on the mayor's Next Gen Advisory Board. I know he's also worked in the past for Habitat for Humanity, and currently works at Calvin University, pardon me. Benjamin Robinson. If I am correct, is this maybe Benjamin Robinson, who is a business owner in our community? Yes,
So
yes.
it must be third ward. He said he doesn't know, but he's on Dickinson.
He's on
Street,
Dickinson, so he'd be a third warder. Do you know Mr. Robinson, Commissioner Moody?
I do not know Benjamin Robinson at all, unless I came
Yeah.
across him in a community gathering somewhere.
You know, he has been an active member of the small business community, so he owns a bagel franchise as well as Robinson's Popcorn.
Oh,
Oh, that gentleman.
Yes, yep. He, I know, was part of our neighborhood summit this year.
Now,
and
I'll go
supporting-
back, you said he owns a popcorn business?
He owns a popcorn business and
Okay.
a bagel franchise and actually the first ward.
yeah,
Now,
that's right. Just
let me
just
retract. I have met him.
Okay, yeah. I mean, it's a common name, right? So it's not like he's saucy. So
Well, I got some Yasasis that live across the street from me.
you do have some Isasis in the third ward. So I'd have to look at the rest of the PIFs, but Mr. Robinson, I think, has been an active member of this community and involved.
Has he been approved or not, Daniel?
Yes. Yes,
Mr.
he has.
Yeah, Mr. Nate Phillips is also, as well as being a member of the Mayor's Next Gen Board.
right.
And then let me look at, is there one last one? Joanna,
There's Gary Mulder.
oh, I'm missing Gary Mulder. Let me see.
But Gary Mulder's first ward.
Okay.
But then Jessica Notenbaum.
Yeah, so
the other
those are, I was trying to see the ones that I was familiar with and then wanting to make sure the ones I didn't know. So this one here, I don't know which ward I live in. This is Joanna Udu? I don't know if I'm saying that correctly. I'm probably using too much Michigan pronunciation. Udo, they say that they don't know what ward they live in, but that's going to be northeast, that's going to be a second warder, so.
Yeah, probably.
I want to just be mindful of the wards too.
Yeah.
Mr. Robinson is in the third ward, and then Mr. Phillips is in the second ward.
Right.
And then I don't know what the current makeup is right now. Let's see. Doug is the first ward. Bethany's the second. I'm sorry, Doug is the second ward. Bethany's the second ward.
On the front of the packet, there should be the current breakdown.
Oh, thank you. You did that.
Sorry, I have to run, colleagues.
No, that's okay.
But
So I think the only question would be that those that did not, Jasmine LeBolt is the only one that we don't know if they're going to re-up and we don't have an active PIF for them.
Correct.
And then, of course, we have, this shows one vacancy, Daniel, but we said we have two vacancies.
Correct. The one vacancy is expiring at the end of this year.
Okay.
And the second vacancy will not expire until 2024.
Okay. Okay. So we could potentially have 6 individuals that we appoint. Is that correct? Am I correct in the
Correct.
math? Okay. So I'll just state, Commissioner Moody, I would be supportive of Doug moving forward. I think Nate Phillips would be another person to move forward. I would support Mr. Robinson as well. I would need more time, and I know you said that too, Daniel, to look at the others, and thank you for putting these together. This is extremely helpful. So I need more time to review the other individuals who have submitted, but all of these ones do meet the residency requirements, so we don't have to worry about that.
Correct.
The only person that we would pull out is this Dion Hardiman because of the residency, not meeting the residency requirement. Is that correct? Or am I missing one?
That's correct.
And then Joanna Udu is also one that I don't know, so I'd like to review the remaining 4. Would that be okay with you, Commissioner Moody?
Sure.
Okay. And then we could follow up to Daniel about some of these appointments.
Great.
Because then that would leave us, this is 4 right here that we could potentially be moving forward. And we may or may not have Jasmine.
Correct.
Okay. So as we review these, could you also follow up with Jasmine?
Of course.
Okay. I know you already have, and thank you for that. Am I saying that correctly? Or Jessamine? Jessamine, let me say that. Jessamine LeBeau. Okay. I know we've just added some folks, or at least one individual, and I think there's one other that the mayor's reviewing for our Parks and Advisory Board. I believe Carl Johnson, this is a 1-year appointment, correct? These are 1
Correct.
years?
I believe that's the urban forestry or urban agriculture liaison position on the Parks Board. So Mr. Johnson serves on both boards.
Got it, okay. Okay. But he was just appointed, he would have been just appointed this year because it's a 1-year term?
He was replacing another
Okay,
person on the board that resigned from,
I got, okay.
excuse me, urban forestry, so their position on parks was no longer available.
Got it, okay, okay. So we would need to understand if Miss Kelly Jo Peltier and Mr. Carl Johnson were gonna continue.
They both have submitted PIFs, yes.
Okay, they both have submitted. I keep forgetting that you told me that. I know that Carl was an appointee of Commissioner Repart just this last year. And I would support Kelly Jo Peltier's re-up as well. So Commissioner Moody, I've known Kelly Jo Peltier for quite a while. And she's been an active member of the Grand Rapids sort of volunteering and board community. She's a downtown resident, yep, so she's First Ward. So I would support both of those to move forward.
Okay.
And obviously Commissioner Repart looked at this too, but I think those should move forward. And then could we look at urban forestry and then close out our meeting? Okay, so then these 3 that are on urban forestry, Miss Sutter is sort of, we appreciate Miss Sutter's service, but we will, that's a sort of a business thing, so she'll appear on that packet. Have Miss Lauren Davis, have they applied? Or you're gonna share those, so thank you.
It does not appear at this time that any of the expiring appointments have reapplied.
For urban forestry?
Correct.
Okay. And I know they are losing a board chair in Mr. Lee Mueller, because I believe he is term limited. So that would be another one we'd want to prioritize.
Thanks, Dan.
Thank you. So thank you. This is helpful, Daniel. And does urban forestry have a residency requirement?
I don't believe so.
I don't think so.
Let me check.
I think we always try to balance and have some, though. So if Lauren hasn't submitted, if you can follow up with Lauren, just because I do know they're losing a chair, and so sometimes for continuity's sake, it's good to at least ask people to continue, just knowing that. And then it looks like Brittany Bryant is one that has completed this out of the, I'm
My
sorry.
apologies, yes.
Oh. So Brittany Bryant, out of the 3rd Ward, it has submitted for urban forestry. It looks like they live in South Hill. They have a bachelor's degree in biological science and an MD in human medicine. And I'm a new and practice pathologist, and I'd love to bring my special expertise to serve the city.
Great.
That sounds like a very interesting and supportive background, I think, both biologically, but also just knowing social determinants of health and the importance of our external environment. And these are fully vetted that you're sharing with us.
Correct.
Yes, so just another reminder for all of us. I think this would look, knowing that we have at the minimum, we have a vacancy too. So this looks good, but I'm going to comment until we look at all of them, if that's okay, Commissioner Moody. Just so that I'm not missing anything.
I'm with you, Commissioner.
Okay. So this one is Mark Patrick Gleason, a 2nd Ward resident. They've listed Parks and Advisory as well as Urban Forestry, but we don't have any openings on Parks and Advisory if those get re-upped, so I see why you did that. Let me see, did they share? It says, I have work experience and educational degrees that match the 2 advisory boards that I'm interested in serving. And so it looks like they have a forest resource and environmental science background from Michigan Tech, and also a parks, recreation, and tourism degree in a master's. So quite a bit of background that I think would be helpful. So those 2 look very interesting.
So
By
since,
interesting, I mean positive.
So since Park and Recs are full, are we pushing him toward urban forestry?
Yes, he did put urban forestry as a 2nd, so we could extend that to him. And then the last, so both, let's see, the 2nd Ward and then 3rd Ward. And this last one is also a 2nd Ward. William Vasiliauskas. Hopefully I'm saying that correctly again too. They are an arborist. So that is a great background to have on urban forestry. They work at Good Earth Tree Care. Wow, it sounds like we've got some really good choices to pick from urban forestry, and I know this is sometimes an area because it obviously is about, you're caring about your external environment, but also does have some technical elements to it around, I learned that you don't trim trees, you prune them. There's much science to urban forestry. So I think we have 3 good candidates to look at. I would just look, it looks like we are heavy on, well, we have 2 2nd Warders that would be up for reappointment. Or I'm sorry, two 2nd Warders right now. And then if we go to Daniel's page, this main page, Commissioner, on top of this, we have 1 that's a 1st Warder. We have 4 2nd Warders.
And 3.
We have 2 3rd Warders. But we don't have any 1st Warders that have applied. So we always try to look for the balance of the wards, but if it's not there, and also these are strong backgrounds in sort of urban forestry overall. So what I'd like to do on this is have a conversation with the outgoing board chair, and then Mr. Marquardt is the liaison for this body as well, before we would say who would move forward, because I think we have 3 good choices, and I want to make sure how can we leverage, and if we might not know, because I don't see Mr. Lee Mueller on here, but I believe he is expiring.
Correct.
Because then essentially we'd have 2 vacancies.
Just one moment.
Sure.
That's correct.
Okay, so we should add him to this list that you have here, Daniel. There's nobody else from urban forestry that's termed?
No.
Okay. So then essentially for urban forestry, we have 2 openings because of a vacancy and Mr. Mueller being term limited. And then we have to confirm if Ms. Davis is going to continue. And then in that case, then we could, if she wasn't, then we could potentially move forward with all 3 of these PIFs. Which I think they're all sort of, these all are very positive PIFs, I would say. But we just want to confirm with Ms. Davis since she's currently serving.
Commissioner, you sounds to have one question.
Sure.
And I'm sure that Dana can answer this. And the PIFs, do you do or check the references of the individuals who they have on the application forms about those?
I do not, no.
Anyone at all, or?
No.
Okay.
I think usually it is, I think in the past, sometimes if we've had to make a decision between, like with these 3, this might be a good example where we could do that because we might not have enough seats, but we have good candidates. I think sometimes we're running into the fact of we have just enough candidates for the openings or we need more candidates than we have.
Right. And I was just wondering, as I was browsing through some of these applications, some of these references I know, so I'm figuring, okay,
Yeah,
so we call
yep,
these
absolutely.
references and check them out, so.
Absolutely. So for that one, if you could follow up with Miss Lauren Davis, and then I can also follow up with Mr. Marquardt. So the action items I have for here as we look to end this meeting is Daniel's going to do the follow-up with the bodies that we talked about. I won't list each one, but where we didn't get a PIF, but they are eligible.
Right.
Even though he's already followed up with them and the liaison has followed up. I'm going to follow up with the mayor specifically about the planning commission appointment that we talked about, so we could potentially get that on our agenda for this next meeting. And I will follow up with Ms. Claren regarding the hospital finance board. And I will follow up with Mr. Marquardt regarding urban forestry, just to make sure if
Wonderful.
there's any objection to that, and then you can see if Lauren is interested in continuing. So we obviously have some others on here. So is it appropriate, City Clerk, I just want to make sure I'm following all the open meeting rules, that Daniel can give us the packets for all the other bodies that he has prepared, and so then we can provide some feedback to him about these openings.
Yeah, because you, sorry.
Yeah, nope,
Yeah, you'd be well in that because you could just call him and ask him and he could give
Yep.
them to you, so.
okay, all right.
It's just you're reviewing work that's separate.
Yeah, okay. We just don't necessarily always have these working meetings, so I want to make sure people understand that we are just trying to do some of the discussion points in the public realm, so, okay. So, we'll receive those from Daniel, and, I can take Commissioner Repart's, and then, Daniel, we can follow up appropriately as we work out to build, not this next agenda, but then, like you said, that final year-end agenda.
Sure.
I hope, and I don't believe that we will need another special meeting. We have 2 more meetings, right, before the end of the year. We have this year-end pieces. The mayor will also, I know, is looking at hers, as you shared. And then the biggest piece is also seating the Housing Appeals Board. I'm sorry, not the Housing Appeals, the Housing Trust Fund Board. And so I know we've had, I don't know how many people have applied right now.
There's about 70
Okay.
applications.
So I don't know, we haven't had the discussion about how long we were going to keep that one open. Certainly with 70, that is a lot of items to process, as Daniel and I were talking last week. I do think we could have a discussion with Mr. DeLong as the lead on this project with commission and appointments committee to see if that should be closed at this time, just so that we can have an opportunity to go through what we have. So will you be able to share a list of that as well, Daniel, with this body?
Yes.
Okay. Because really, we'll need to actively work on that here in these next few weeks, so then we can meet that deadline for the second meeting of the year. Or we can add a second meeting, which hopefully we won't have to, so. Commissioner Moody, any other comments or thoughts? Anything I'm missing?
No, Commissioner, I really think this is very good. It gives a different perspective of what our committee is about and also gives us an opportunity to really look at some of these PIFs.
Okay, great, thank you. Thank you, Daniel, for all your work, I appreciate it. And we are now adjourned at 12:47. Thank you. Have a good rest of the day.